What's up, gang? John Johnson Signature Group, Exit Platinum Realty, with my man Joseph Falla for another episode of Real Estate Keys. Joe, how you been? What's going on, man?
Doing great, man. Welcome back, everybody.
We are back.
Staying positive and productive.
Absolutely. Weather has been pretty good. After all the rain we got about a week ago, looking pretty good here.
It's been beautiful last couple of days up here in the Northeast.
Yeah, very nice weather. But it's fall, so we got the mix of hot and cold, and then cold, and next thing you know,
people catching the sniffles already.
Yeah. But in any event, Joe, we need to talk about appraisals. So it's
absolutely
part of that buying process, part of the seller's process, where we kind of look into how do we determine if the house is really worth the amount that a buyer is going to pay for it.
Right.
So, Joe,
but first, let's not skip our most important topic of every week.
Woo!
The rates. Again, as usual, my disclaimer, I am not quoting anyone rates here today. These are just an estimate of about 20 to 30 different lenders. So this is just to give you an idea. If you're looking for a conventional loan, a 15-year, a jumbo loan, VA loan, all the common ones, FHA, or an ARM product, an adjustable rate mortgage. These are what the rates are looking at today, my friend.
And you look at these numbers and all that. There are still buyers out there, right?
Still buyers.
Still buyers out there. Yeah, it's not the 2.25 that we saw, at the height of the pandemic, but these rates have probably filtered out a lot of window shoppers and have really honed in on the very serious buyer that knows, at the end of the day, I can purchase a home today at a higher rate, so to speak, but these rates are going to go down, and eventually they'll be able to refi to a lower rate. That's the only sense I can make.
You can always refinance as long as the bank can find the need for it. We're just not out here refinancing people willy-nilly. That's something that was done in the past, and there was no benefit for anyone besides the person that was taking advantage of, some scrupulous deals happening. But you can always refinance when the need comes around.
Yeah, sure.
So this is what we're looking at. There was a little bit of a red day today, something to do with England. Don't know what England has to do with our market. They're not buying certain bonds over on the other side of the pond, and it ended up being a red day today. So rates were a little bit up, but rent is always up a year after year.
Yeah.
So
well, one thing is for sure, Joe. One thing's for sure. So, we're looking at 6% and 7% interest rates on mortgages, but the interest rate on rent is 100%.
Every time when you think the house is winning in Vegas, when you think you're winning, the house is always winning.
Yeah.
The house is always winning.
Yeah.
So we've talked about rates, right? We've talked about down payment assistance. We've talked about different types of loans that borrowers can qualify for. So now I've put in my offer. My offer's been accepted. What's my next step? You've already led into it.
Yeah, what's that next step? I mean, we got appraisals, so we gotta, we got this one requirement that's on that pre-approval saying with satisfactory appraisal. What are we talking about when we say appraisal? Like,
an appraisal is essentially a professional qualified estimate value of a house in its current or future conditions. So, so most of the steps after your offer's been accepted is going to be handled by the realtor, right? Most of the documents that I need, with the right lender, have already been submitted. Your pay stubs, your W-2s, you're fully qualified. We're just waiting for the appraisal and home inspection, right? Which is not always a requirement. It's not a requirement of the bank. Home inspection and the appraisal to come back, right? Usually the home inspection will be ordered first, and then we order the appraisal. So the appraisal will be ordered through us so what happened in 2008, with all the crazy things that were happening, appraisals were people were just doing drive-bys, essentially, right? They weren't even stopping at the properties. They were just writing out a number, submitting it to the bank, and, everyone else was in on it, right? So that kind of stuff no longer happens, but we wish that it doesn't happen, right? So now we have a middleman. We have an AMC, right? An appraisal mortgage company. So us as the bank will then go to the appraisal mortgage company. The AMC, order the appraisal, and then they actually contact an appraiser, a certified licensed appraiser, to come out and evaluate the house. Okay, John, I know you've been through hundreds of these. What's some of the great things and some of the bad things, or the things that can throw off a deal with these appraisals?
So happy you asked that question. So, well, first of all, one of the great things is you have a middleman appointing or picking an appraiser to come out to look at the property. Okay. So, kind of going back to
a licensed professional.
Right, a licensed professional. And going back to what you mentioned previously, back in 2008, 2009, mortgage companies knew the appraisers. Mortgage companies pretty much chose the appraisers to go out. Absolutely. Absolutely.
That doesn't sound right. That doesn't sound right.
Yeah, it doesn't sound right. Doesn't mean it wasn't happening. It was happening a lot. And it was, hey, pick your number. That's how bad it was. Like, pick your number, we'll make it happen. Now it's regulated. Okay. And one of the main reasons why it's regulated is to protect you, the buyer, and to protect you, the seller, and to provide that professional, unbiased, uninfluenced, if that's a word, opinion on the price of a home. So that's the good, right? That's the good.
Okay.
Bad, and there's other, positives about it as well. One of the negatives that I've encountered with, an AMC or middleman is that a lot of times they don't take into account where the appraiser does the majority of their business, where the appraiser lives, or
that's a great tip.
Even if the appraiser is familiar with the area. So more often than not, I'll have appraisers doing appraisals in North Jersey. They live in South Jersey, and vice versa. I have appraisers in North Jersey doing appraisals down in South Jersey. So they have no clue of the area. And a lot of times I'll find when the appraisal comes back, yes, they're using comps, but a lot of times those comps aren't good comps. And what do I mean by aren't good comps? So an appraiser that doesn't know the area may choose 6 properties or 5 properties that are located a mile away from the actual property we're trying to get a price on. Mm-hmm. Me knowing the area, I know there are homes on the same block or, the next block over that are identical to the home. So a lot of times appraisers that don't know the areas that they're rendering services in may not understand or have access to better properties to make a more accurate price assessment, if you will.
So you've gone through this in the past?
In the past, presently, I'll probably wind up going through it again next week. It's very common. Very common.
So just for the audience to know, the comps are supposed to be within a mile distance, within the same city boundaries. So if you're, let's say we're here in Jersey, right? So if you're on Route 4 in Hackensack, and as you know, Hackensack borders Bergen, the Bergen line is right there on Route 4. They could be an identical house right across the street. They may not be able to use that because it's not within the same city, or maybe it's crossing a different town. And also, there's when you finally get the appraisal, you're going to see a comp of 3 different properties compared to yours. Now, they don't have to be identical, right? That's why we're doing this video today. It doesn't have to be identical. They basically go off the square footage and then work their way in on the property. Because I've seen houses that don't look anything like the main property that the buyer is looking to purchase, but it's similar in square footage. It's still similar in room count, bathroom count, and so on.
And just to add to that, the preference is to find homes that are like for like, right?
Right.
You're not going to find a home that's exactly the same because you're going to have to do adjustments. But the preference, rule of thumb, is to always find a like for like property within a mile, within the same city. And it goes along the same lines when a realtor such as myself offers to do a CMA or comparative market analysis.
Mm-hmm.
We as realtors have access to the same properties that an appraiser would use to do their appraisal. And oftentimes, especially during COVID, Joe, I've had to challenge a lot of these appraisals because, you know, they were simply looking too far out for a like for like property, if you will. And I've had to kind of show them what my CMA or comparative analysis basically drew in regards to inventory.
And that's actually a good point, John. It is not against the rules for the buyer, you know, with the assistance, you know, from the realtor, because they're the professionals, to, you know, show their own properties that they've, you know, well, why did you skip this one? You can submit assistance. It's not against the rules. We can't tell the appraiser we're not going to pay them because they haven't done their job well enough from what you seem, or held back funds. No, that you can't do. But you can, as a realtor, as the buyer, even the seller can actually show, well, you might have skipped this property somehow, some way. So you can do that. That's not against the rules.
Right.
And in some towns, especially here in Jersey, it's easier. Some of the comps are easier, right? You've seen that, like in, let's say, Elizabeth. My style house, there's one right next door to mine, and there's about 8 of them within less of a quarter square mile from my house. In some other cities, it's not as easy. East Orange, I think, is one of those cities where it's harder to find an identical property. Also, with all these brand new properties coming out that are being built, especially here where I'm at in Elizabeth, there was a builder that built 2 new 3-family houses. Me being the professional that I said, I didn't wish the guy any ill will, but I said, I found out what he was selling it, what he wanted to sell it for. And I said, don't think that's going to happen. Right. Sure enough, I saw him one day, pulled up to him. Hey, how's the sale going? Oh, not too great. So what happened? Oh, the appraiser came back $100,000 less than what I thought I'd get for the properties.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that'll happen because, you know, in the seller's market, you don't have a lot of inventory. So it's
especially
hard.
For new builds. Especially for new builds.
Yeah, especially for new builds. It's just a challenge to find something that has sold within the past 6 months. So
right.
Another rule of thumb is you look for a like or very similar property. And you also look for properties that have sold within the past 6 months. But if you don't have a whole lot of inventory, it's hard to find, number one, a like for like home.
If no one wants to sell their home.
Right, no one wants to sell their home. Right. And you've just went through a moratorium where the government said, well, for the next 12 to 18 months, you don't have to make a mortgage payment. Who in their right mind is going to sell their home if the government's saying, don't worry about mortgage payments? So it makes it that much harder to find recently sold properties in
Absolutely.
The kind of market that we've been in, right? So you naturally, an appraiser has to kind of go a little further than that quarter mile or that mile to find properties.
I have my friend that I always mention that just bought in Hackensack. He has a 2-family house, and right around the corner from his house, there's a similar property. But guess what? It's a single family. Mm-hmm. It's a little. It's not as it's in lengthwise. It's not as high, as tall as his house, but it's a similar property. It would definitely come up as a comp, but you can't use it. It's a single family. Mm-hmm. We can't just go by the square footage and say, well, we're going to use this one because it fits the size, it fits the mold. It's not the same type of property.
Yeah. I'm facing that as well. I'm going back and forth with a couple of clients saying, well, my house and this other house and that house around the corner is being sold. That's a 3-family. Yours is a single. And they're constantly.
And that's why even though that information is funny you mentioned that, John. Even though that information is available for anyone to research online, I know on some of these websites they do fail to sometimes list the type of house that it is. I've seen singles that are multifamilies listed on these realtor.com. That's why you want to deal with the professional, because they first have direct connection with the person that's listing the house, the buyer, the seller agent. And they have access to the MLS where there's a lot of details on the MLS that are missing from these, Zillow, Realtor, Trulia. There's a lot of information that they're missing on there.
Joe, there is the public version that everyone has access to. And then there's the professional or agent version or appraisal version of the same exact.
I love the music business, John. Do you think that song just was done in one take in 50? Well, with these new music, but you think that your favorite artist, you think as much of a genius as Prince was, that he was able to just record, lay down all the vocals, do all the instrumentation on this music in 10 to 15 minutes? No, it took some time. And there's the studio version, and there's the version you're going to hear on the radio.
Exactly. That's a great analogy. That's a great one.
Thank you. Yeah, there's going to be the cleaned up version, and there's going to be the mess. That's what the MLS is for. That's where everything that you need, and it, unfortunately, the access is only available to real estate agents that are licensed, and that's what we're here for, and that's why you need professionals like John and his team over at Exit Platinum.
Absolutely.
In Montclair, New Jersey.
Nice plug.
Right off Bloomfield Avenue. There's a lot of great entertainment and music and food.
Check us in the mail, Joe. Check us in the mail.
But I have a little cheat sheet here, John. It's part of my mortgage playbook. For the first time, I'm only kidding. It's an inside joke with me and John. It's only going to be $19.99 for my playbook, and I just need your email address. The playbook is free. It's just I need your email, and the shipping is $19.95.
Oh man! How about if I give you free 99? How about that? I like free.
We're going to give them free 99 today. So this is just a couple of little notes that I wrote down. It's a sheet that I have for appraisals. So there are different types of appraisals that can be performed, right? There's the most common is what we and John have just talked about. There's a sales approach, right? It's based off similar recently sold properties. They're going to use 3 comparables within a mile's distance. There's also a different type of approach. And John, you chime in if you've done any. There's one that's called a cost/income approach. Those are going to be your churches, your libraries, let's say, or I saw one unique property in Bergen, in North Bergen, a 4-unit it was 3 houses in one, a long driveway, and then like a main property to the right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There aren't any other properties in that area that fit that description in North Bergen. And it's a rental. It's an investment property, right? Mm-hmm. So most likely, once an appraiser comes in, they're probably going to have to go with the cost approach to figure out the value of that property. Okay, so that's that.
And Joe, let me just expand on that cost approach. A lot of homeowners own investment properties, multiple units. And in this seller's market, for example, they'll say, wait a minute, I got a three family. And, all the three families in the area or the three family down the block, it's being sold for $600,000. So I want to list mine for $600,000, right? But then you look at using the cost approach or income approach. Well, how much money does that house down the block listed for $600,000? How much money does it generate in rental income? You look at all the numbers on that property. You look at the spreadsheet, the P&Ls, and that property is making roughly, say, $9,000 a month in rental income, right? But then you break it down. Okay, well, that's a three family. It's making $9,000. So on the average, it's making $3,000 per unit. You go back to this person that wants to put their three family on the market. How much are you renting your units out for?
Oh, less than market value. I love my tenants.
There you go.
They've been there for 5 years, and I hate to get rid of them because if I get rid of them, even if I bring the rents to market rents, right, the current rents, what's the chances of me getting the same great quality tenants?
Exactly. And Joe, the average rents in this unit, in this house, are $1,500. So now this guy's making $4,500 in rental income, right? But he wants to list it for $600,000 when the $600,000 home is bringing in $9,000 a month. So this is a very good example of the cost approach, because an appraisal will come in at the $600,000, probably more if you're pulling in $9,000 a month, right? But they'll look at this income property making $4,500 a month collectively across all three units, and they might appraise it at $450,000. A lot rides on the rental income.
That's why, again, you have to contact a professional that's going to get you the right answers. But that's a great point, John. That's an amazing point. Mm-hmm. Now, I've been in the property for 10 years, and I keep getting these letters in the mail that says, hey, refinance, pull the equity out of your house, right? So appraisals are used for that as well. You just can't call the bank, say I paid down 20%. You call the bank, and they tell you, yeah, you've paid down $100,000 of your loan since you've purchased a home. You're eligible for a refinance. They just don't cut you a check, right? They have to also use an appraiser to get the correct estimated value of the house, and then they will lend up to a certain amount. And we've covered that. We did the refinance that in a few shows ago. And then the appraisal is also important for that as well. Mm-hmm. But that's basically the gist of it. Now, as far as a home inspector, John, why do they? I know the answer, right? I want to pick your brain. Why do they both come up with two different things? They're both. This home inspector may catch something that the appraiser doesn't catch.
Okay. Very, very simple, right? There are two different roles. Number one, that a home inspector and an appraiser are serving, right? And
both at the cost of the borrower, just to let you know. Both at the
cost of the borrower. And both of them are looking for both similar and different things. There are two agendas, okay, that we're talking about. A home inspector has one agenda, an appraiser has another agenda, and sometimes their agendas kind of overlap in regards to what they capture.
Sometimes.
So a home inspector is looking for anything and everything that's wrong with a property or that will need to be addressed in the future. That's the role of a home inspector. A very good home inspector is going to spend 2, 3, even 4 hours at a property, literally ripping it apart. And I use that term loosely because a good home inspector is going to tell you everything and anything that's wrong with the property, even new construction. Highly recommend. If you're buying new construction, you get a home inspector anyway. But their role is to find anything and everything that's wrong with a property.
Will the appraiser even look at your above ground pool?
And this is where we go into the other agenda. The appraiser, depending on what kind of loan is being taken out, he's looking at it from a lender's eye. He wants to make sure the property is worth a certain amount. So as long as the appraiser feels the home is worth a certain amount of money, they're not going to be as invasive as a home inspector will be. Okay. And just briefly going into it, if you have a conventional mortgage, okay, that appraiser is going in there with the eye saying, okay, the house is in decent shape.
Safe, sound, and secure. That's what they're looking for.
If it's a secure home, if it looks like it's being well maintained, I'm not going to be as invasive as if I were a home inspector. If it looks good, okay, the comps in the area are good, no problem, right? If it's an FHA mortgage that needs an appraisal, okay, or
it's a different set of eyes.
Right, it's a different set of eyes. If it's a government insured mortgage where the buyer's really not putting that much risk in the game, that's telling the appraiser, okay, the bank really needs for this appraiser to go in there and really take a closer look at the home, because the bank is taking more of a risk in issuing this loan because the buyer is really not putting up that much money. So in that instance, an appraiser may look at any loose rails. He may look at any chipping paint. He might look at
interior, exterior chipping paint.
Absolutely.
Very, very important.
Absolutely. Interior, window sills, everything. He might look at it a little bit closer, right? Also note, an appraiser will probably spend no more than 15 or 20 minutes at a home. So if you really think about it, you have a home inspector that's going to spend 2 to 4 hours at the property. You have an appraiser that's going to spend maybe 20 minutes of the property. So who's going to really inspect what?
That's an amazing point, John. I'm really glad you mentioned that.
That's the difference.
That's why this another point to this video is we don't want, everyone makes the appraisers out to be the Grinch that wants to spoil everyone's holidays, right? They're really not. They're just looking out they're hired to look out for the bank because of the amount of investment. This is not a $15,000 used Honda Accord. That bank is already taking that risk factor in. It's a 7-year-old vehicle. Most vehicles start to break down at a certain amount of miles. They already factored that in the interest rate and based off your credit and your past, car rental purchases or finances that you've had. This is it can be a 5, the number can go as high as you want it to be, right? Investment that the bank is taking for someone they really don't know. They really don't know them. You know who's your key to this? Your loan officer. No matter what loan officer you're dealing with, that is your key. They are your representative to purchasing this home. So that's why, and the great point that John brought up is you should always get a home inspector, unless it's a brand new construction, which is a whole different set of rules. You should always have a home inspector. The appraiser is just looking out for a couple of things for the bank, just to make sure the roof is not going to collapse, on the day that you move into the house, or you move a wall, you tap a wall and the whole wall collapses down. They're just going to make sure the house is in safe, sound, secure. That's what they're looking for. But that home inspector is a great key, John.
Yeah.
How many buyers have you seen want to skip out on those in the past because of what the cost to it?
Listen, because of this pandemic, people, my clients, everybody's clients, for that matter, felt that they had to waive the home inspection. Okay, just
go. Just give them
a home.
What did they say? 400? Bid 480 and tell them we're going to skip all the contingencies.
Yeah, forget. We'll waive the home inspection. We'll take the house the way we
As
see it,
is.
and we'll go.
I've walked in Home Depot before. I know what it takes to be a home inspector.
Huge mistake. You guys come my way, we're doing a home inspection, period. Because we have to know what you're getting yourself into in the long run. It's very easy to get you guys into a home, but it's even harder to keep you in that home. And maintenance is one of those things. And if you don't know what you have to maintain or what's coming up that you probably need to pay more attention to, you shot yourself in the foot from day one. And the other thing, Joe, I'll mention real quick is the mortgage company, and Joe, you can attest to this, mortgage company doesn't care what comes up in the home inspection. They're concerned about what comes up during the appraisal.
Exactly. And it's funny, right? You would think it would be the opposite.
You would think that.
You would think it would be the opposite.
Yep.
And no, it's funny. There's just so many people that just want to, try to cut corners when purchasing a house, when that's the last thing that you wanted to do. And I'm gonna show you here something really quick, John. So, and this is just, we'll say I'm gonna just toot my own horn for right now, right? Now, everyone after you get a pre-approval, right? It's always a good idea to get an estimate of your closing costs, right? Which is going to tell you what your upfront taxes are going to be, what your upfront payment is going to be. It's going to tell you how much you have to pay upfront for your homeowner's insurance, basically all the closing costs. When I provide my closing costs, I do it a little bit different way, right? And we're going to do a video on this as well, John, on closing costs in the future.
Awesome.
You should always have your lender provide you a worksheet, some sort of disclosure, a total cost analysis is what we call it here. Basically explaining to you, give me a second to bring it up here, John, what your costs to get into this house is going to be. And they should include everything. And what I do is I give you this TCA, and it actually breaks down. If you give me a second here, I'll find it. This is, give me a second here.
And Joe, what does TCA stand for?
Total cost analysis. So this is going to, what I provide to my clients right here. So this is a house that a client of mine was looking at recently, right? So between me and the realtor, we came up with different price points of what they could offer, what they could buy this house at, right? So you can see what the monthly taxes are going to be. You can see what the mortgage insurance is going to be. This is the mortgage insurance. This is what your hazard insurance is going to be. And if you give me a second here, and we go, oh shit, here we go. We go into fee detail. Appraisal is right there, right? Inspection. We didn't cover that, John. We skipped over that. There are times where the appraiser will not allow for the house to continue, for the loan to continue until certain things are fixed first. Now, depending on the bank, there is the cost, right? Depending on the AMC that the bank ends up choosing, right? There is a reinspection fee, which means once those couple of items have been fixed either by the buyer or whatever the case may be, once it's fixed, someone's got to pay for that. So I include that in the cost analysis. Now, if the appraisal comes back fine, then this is $225 that you didn't have to come out of your pocket. And this is just an estimate. And right. These little small fees are what you should be getting from your loan officer. So that's right. The reason, which is something, John, you've seen in the past. I pride myself on providing those to my clients.
Mm-hmm. And Joe, I know you had $795 on there for an estimate for an appraisal.
That's just an estimate.
Yeah, so that's just an estimate, and sometimes you can have appraisals that are lower. You might have some that are higher. It really depends on the property.
I like to always be conservative. So you can't come back to me. No one's ever going to come back to me. No one has come back to me and say, "Hey, Joe, you said the appraisal was $795. It was $6.95. Where do I send that extra $100?
No one's ever did that.
No, not yet. Not yet.
No one ever.
I have some amazing charities that I could take that money to, but no one's offered that.
Wow. Joe.
But this is your real estate keys for this week.
Appraisals.
Very important.
Joe, how do you
they
get
have to be done properly. 908-669-9091. You can DM me on all platforms. Joe does mortgages. And John, how can they contact you?
908-338-0639. You see the hashtag Johnson Signature Group.
Don't forget to like this video. Where's my camera? Don't forget to like this video and subscribe if you think the content that we're providing here is important and beneficial to you in your future real estate journey.
Sharing is caring. Until next week, Joe, appreciate you, man.
All right, brother.